Okay, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Today is Monday, September the 6th, 2021. And for those in North America that have a day off today, very happy to hear that all of you got time off of work and all that. It's always phenomenal for everyone to get a break, to rest. It's something that we should probably be doing more often than not these days, considering all of the things going on in the world. With that being said, we have a lot of news to catch up on, and I'm really excited, to be honest. Not obviously for the negative news, but to sort of do a recap of what's been happening for the last few days. So first off, almost 9 million people across the U.S. will lose their unemployment benefits beginning today, Labor Day, as the pandemic safety net has expired. Look, I'm not going to get into this whole thing about social safety nets and this, socialism versus capitalism and you name it, but in my opinion, if that is not a prime example of a dysfunctional government, I don't know what is. I mean, for me, it's very simple. I'm not trying to take the perspective of that of a libertarian or a leftist or a conservative, Republican, you name it, or a populist, what have you. My whole thing is this: to transcend the left versus the right sort of battle or show that's been put on, the puppet show, if you want to call it. Congress can, in an afternoon, approves an extra, $100, $200, $300, $400 million in annual yearly spending for the military budget, but they can't put even a small percentage of that towards, the average stay-at-home mother who's unfortunately been abandoned with a handful of kids. Like, circumstances are difficult, and I understand that there are people as well on the other side of things that do take advantage of the system. I get that. I understand that perspective too, but we also have to consider people who, at the same time, I really do feel in a lot of ways are very helpless when they have so many responsibilities. Now, it kind of leads people to make very cold and, very dark decisions in their lives. I've had some family friends in the United States where, very, very sadly, they've had to put their children up for adoption because they simply could not make ends meet as a single parent. Again, it's up for debate. There's the sort of the jackass view of it, which is, well, people say, arguably jackass view. Why did you have so many kids to begin with? And again, this is life. Shit happens, right? So if Congress took just as long to decide to approve the military budget, the same way they take just as long to decide and debate the social safety net program, then you know what? I'd have no problem. But why they can approve on both Democrats and Republicans, they can approve these war budgets and bills, no problem. But this stuff they can't. Come on. A lot of people on Labor Day are stressing now, if you ask me. Anyways, the next thing is that the Chinese-owned video-sharing network TikTok has now overtaken YouTube for average watch time views in the US and the UK, according to the BBC. Again, from an intelligence perspective, this is phenomenal. I would consider this a success on behalf of the CCP, presuming the CCP still has the vast majority of control and influence on TikTok. Again, there's been that whole thing about data gathering and privacy. Again, Apple, which takes me to my next point, which is that Apple is going to be backtracking on their sort of I guess you could call spy software because of the public outcry of privacy overreach. Look, I love the public outcry over people saying this is an overreach of privacy, but in reality, folks, Snowden gave us the cold hard truth in 2013. They've been spying on us in every device, every video game console for God knows how long. Maybe video game consoles a little less prominent, but tablets, phones, laptops, it's all there. Smart TVs, it's done. Smart watches. He admitted it. He said it. Right? So, I mean, at that point, it comes down to maybe whether or not you believe Snowden, right? It's ironic how arguably real journalists, those that transcend the Republican versus Democrat perspective and agenda narrative, are the ones that get outcast. Again, arguably Julian Assange, Edward Snowden. You see what I'm saying? I forgot that gentleman who reported on the Iran-Contra case that got really close, who also reported on extraterrestrials near the end of his life because just of how the two conflated, and he got killed too. So the next thing is that Brazilian health authorities have stormed at the time that this was reported yesterday, stormed onto the pitch or the soccer field and stopped the Brazil versus Argentina match to detain 4 Argentinian players over COVID-19 rules and breaking their guidelines. I don't know specifics. I do think this is, again, much of an overreach. Now, this is sort of where the athletes have a bit of an advantage. If you're an athlete and you're making millions of dollars and you have doctors all around you and things like that, and people want to go watch you play and they're okay with you having that special privilege and you name it, so they can be entertained and watch you play during this time of a pandemic, people want to de-stress, let them play. Let them play. Unless there was something really bad here, which again, if there was that these players had, they probably would have detailed it and publicized it immediately. I don't know what the hell happened here, in my opinion. Now, again, if I'm missing context, please forgive me, but this is as far as I think the public knows at this point. The next thing is that 6 planes with hundreds of evacuees, including American citizens, are not allowed to leave Afghanistan. And I quote, "The Taliban is basically holding them hostage to get more out of the Americans," end quote, a senior congressional source told CBS. Oh my Lord. And I say this out in a very angry, passionate way. I never would have, pardon my English, never would have fucking guessed. Never would have guessed that's what they would have done. Not in a million years. It's not like humans use blackmail and leverage as one of the main prime components of negotiations and tactics. I never would have guessed. The next thing, I'm not even going to go on about that. Don't get me started, please. The next thing is that MSNBC host Rachel Maddow amplified a local tall tale about the drug ivermectin. Maddow's report was completely discredited by the hospital as fake news. Her tweet wasn't taken down. How come Twitter safety didn't take her down? Her tweet down. How come? I thought it was supposed to be fair on both sides. It didn't get taken down. She pushed a fake narrative. The hospital that she referred to, that she referenced in her show, said this was, pardon my English, bullshit. By the way, Rachel Maddow has a team of quote-unquote researchers around her, and on top of that, she gets paid $32,000 a day. Last time I checked her salary. $32,000 a day she gets, plus she has a team of quote-unquote researchers around her. Are you kidding me? Oh my God, I'm sorry guys if I sound angry, but it's this kind of stuff that's just ridiculous. Again, there's an unlimited amount of money for people that are going to push the narrative of the establishment. Simple. I'm not even saying Democrats or Republicans, the establishment. The next thing is that Israel is set to begin preparations to administer a 4th dose of the coronavirus vaccine as the country deals with soaring cases despite its trailblazing rollout of jabs, according to the country's national coronavirus czar, Salman Zarqa. Okay, maybe the outlet that reported this and called them a coronavirus czar. That's a bit much if you ask me. I mean, I get what they're trying to, I see what they're trying to get at, but that is a little, in my opinion, biased reporting, presuming that's what they meant. So I'll take that part back. I don't want to sound biased already. Let's try to make this right down the middle. Simple. Someone, my opinion, folks, I'll reference this. A tweet from a couple days ago I saw. Someone said, "I can't wait till the fully vaccinated need to get fully vaccinated again to protect themselves from the fully vaccinated." There's doctors that have been shunned, that have argued very strongly, and I say this carefully because of YouTube and what have you. I'm not saying this is medical fact. I'm saying there are doctors that have argued that, again, the boop, the jab, if you want to call it, is causing this other variant to spread quite substantially. And at the same time, by the way, it was reported by Business Insider that in the United States, you are legally not allowed to know which variant you have. Think about that. Just Google Business Insider, not allowed to know variant. You'll find it. It's right there. And you want to tell me that this isn't about control? Just like with what's going on in Australia. I have some friends and family there that have been in those camps or hotels or you name it. They say, "Dave, I don't know what people are complaining about. You know, they give us nice TVs, they give us this and that, but then there's also the more secretive part of the camps too." However, this is what I say about those hotels and you name it. Of course, they're going to give you a video game console, a nice shower, nice kitchen, nice food. It's not about that, guys. It's about mental compliance. Are people willing to sacrifice their freedom because, oh, look, nice TV, nice hotel room? That's in my opinion, that's what it comes down to. And if you ask me, I hate to say it because I know a lot of Australian people, some of the greatest people in the world. I would argue a lot of elements of their government have fallen at this point. That's what I would argue. I mean, again, this is more of a conspiracy, but again, there are elements to substantiate this, and there is evidence too that, you know, because of the Five Eyes alliance, Australia is a great place to sort of test more Big Brother-like rules because they're on an island. You lock them down. Pretty simple, right? And of course, the U.S., in my opinion, is controlling what's going on there because of how closely tied the two countries are. There's clearly not going to be some communication secretly between the two. The next thing is that a 29-year-old Afghanistan male stabbed a gardener, a 58-year-old gardener, with a knife in Berlin because it reportedly bothered him that she worked as a woman. She was critically injured, and the attacker was seriously injured another person by the age of 66 as well, who wanted to help. Okay, I want to make this very clear. I'm not trying to sound, again, this is reported by CBS, ABC, CNN, you name it. We need to put aside in my opinion, the ethnicity of this particular individual. Why? Just because you're from Afghanistan doesn't mean that you're going to hold these views every single time. Is there a strong, prevalent, I guess you could say, belief system there that some take upon more extremely? Absolutely, 100%. And this is the problem with, again, the Afghanistan evacuation. A bunch of people got on that plane. We don't know which ones are very nice Afghans, just like we don't know which ones are very, extremist ones, to be fair. But that's like saying anything else in life, too. Comparing it to myself, again, I say it all the time. My family's in plumbing and construction. It sounds like the stereotype of, organized crime, you name it. It's a stereotype. It's a stereotype for a reason, right? In that particular case. You see what I'm saying? And so, again, I say the same thing. There's good Italians. There's bad Italians. Doesn't mean we all put them in the same pot. But it's unfortunate when I hear things like this happen, right? So the next thing is that fully vaccinated Oscar De La Hoya was hospitalized with COVID and pulls out of his comeback fight against Vitor Belfort, excuse me. Okay. De La Hoya, who's nicknamed the Golden Boy, is ranked as the 29th best boxer of all time. There's a little bit of a comparison being put out online, and just to play both sides, we could argue this is a bit anecdotal, but I'm going to bring it up anyways. People saying, look, the media went nuts about Joe Rogan because they couldn't control the narrative because he was telling the truth about him taking a mix of ivermectin, a cocktail of different things, and he got better in 3 days. Oscar De La Hoya got the vaccine, and to this day, from my understanding, he's still in the hospital. So I see what people are saying. With that being said, let's play devil's advocate for a second. Let's presume, for the sake of YouTube and all that, COVID is legitimate, you name it, right? If we take a look at that and we take a step back, everyone's bodies respond differently to different things. I'm not saying the vaccine, I'm just saying in general. So again, we can't just use Joe Rogan and Oscar De La Hoya as the pure, final, primal examples because again, it could be anecdotal. However, it does go to show you that the mainstream media going nuts is a sign that something's going on with ivermectin that they don't want us to know about, in my opinion. This is my opinion. And if this video gets taken down by YouTube for saying that, then my God. But anyways, the next thing is that federal prosecutors must disclose, quote, identities of any unnamed co-conspirators, end quote, to Ghislaine Maxwell, a federal judge ruled on Friday. Oh man, this, in my opinion, this is when it's possible the Israelis, the Mossad, might get Black Cube involved again to try to maybe not take out Ghislaine, but to try to use their connections within the political system, hopefully at a local level from their eyes, to suppress this. So we'll see what happens. The next thing is that the World Trade Center hijackers, Atta and Al-Shehi, may have been gay lovers, said the 9/11 mastermind, according to some of the declassified FBI files that Biden ordered to have declassified. Again, if you ask me, Biden declassifying those files, it's a distraction. Plain and simple. It looks good because it's, he's showing the truth. He's giving the truth out to the people. They deserve it, finally. No. They're still hiding stuff. Don't kid yourself, in my opinion. The next thing is that the New York Fed has suspended its GDP tracking model as the U.S. economic growth craters. Yeah, from my understanding, the jobs report was bad. Apparently, only 250,000 jobs were created when there was supposed to be a predicted 728,000, according to experts and analysts. Again, if we take a look in this case contextually just within New York, a lot of big-time players have left New York. 50 Cent, for example, he has a lot of business investments in shell companies in New York and things like that, moved to Texas. So many people have moved down south. Again, as we all know, Trump moved his prime residence from New York to Florida, right, Mar-a-Lago. So, it's happening. I mean, Matthew McConaughey says he sees a lot of people moving to Texas now. He says the only thing he wishes people don't do is turn Texas into California in terms of with the pollution, the homelessness, all that stuff. I agree. If celebrities from Cali are flocking to Texas now, it's happening all over the place. Jordan Peterson just announced recently he's moving to Nashville. Right. The next thing is that Moderna's application asking the FDA to authorize a COVID booster shot contains insufficient data, the New York Times reports. Interesting that, again, you got to sandwich some of the truth in there with the bullshit every so often. The next thing is that the Taliban have claimed full victory over Afghanistan at this point. I believe they took the final region. It started with a P. Pardon me for not writing this down. But yeah, come on. They took over the place. It's done, in my opinion. Unless it's one big massive cover or CIA op, which I don't rule out either. Again, we can argue the Taliban have taken over Afghanistan or the CIA have. Depends how you want to view it. I mean, it's unfortunate, but we can argue that very strongly, right? The next thing is that clashes broke out between protesters and police at the UK Drug Regulator's London office ahead of the decision to approve or refuse COVID vaccination for children. And then shortly after, UK's vaccine advisory body, JCVI, refused to approve vaccinating healthy children aged 12 to 15 years or under, citing there is insufficient evidence to offer mass COVID vaccination for this age group. Wow, I'm surprised they said that. Wow. Okay. Look, I'm not going to argue with that. Let's keep moving forward. The next thing is that a security breach impacting the California recall election has officials calling for rigorous audits to ensure that the results are legitimate. The security breach according to who? And I'm not trying to be an asshole here, but when Trump claimed there was a security breach, when the Republicans did, it was all about dismissing it. Don't worry about it. But now that Gavin Newsom sees he's going to be, he's probably going to get voted out. He's complaining. Joe Rogan shouted out Gavin Newsom's opponent. Kamala Harris is now, the White House announced, is going to go campaign for Gavin Newsom. They're getting desperate. Kamala Harris never had a big popularity to begin with. Remember that, folks. So they're getting desperate. And all of a sudden now there's a security breach. It might be legitimate. Let's be fair. Let's be consistent. It might be. But come on. How come they weren't fair last year then? I mean, in terms of, again, Trump. Okay, I don't mean to get into all this, but even if what Trump was saying was BS about the election fraud and things like that, I'm just trying to say this to play both sides, folks. What are we going to, should now the liberal and conservative media try to downplay this security breach that Gavin Newsom's talking about? You see what I'm saying? We got to be consistent. The next thing is that South Australia residents will reportedly be forced to download a quarantine app that randomly requires them to send a picture within 15 minutes of getting a notification proving they are at home or wherever they claim to be when they put in the app where they're supposed to go. Like I said, arguably certain elements of Australia have fallen. The next thing is that globally, more than 55 million people now live with dementia, a syndrome that leads to deterioration in cognitive function, according to the WHO. Again, I'm going to say this because a lot of you folks watch other episodes on this channel too and not just the news. Presuming a lot of these Russian generals are correct in saying that extraterrestrials gave them the cure for cancers and a lot of these mental diseases back in the 80s. You want to talk about pushing a certain cure? How about they push that one? Not the COVID vaccine. How about they push that one? To cure you in an instant. Oh, that's right. It would devalue Big Pharma. Ah, shit, I forgot. You see? So... The next thing is that Qatar plans to resume Gaza funding with new mechanisms while working with the UN to feed families there. Just goes to show you the control that the Mossad and Israel have over the Gaza Strip. I'm not saying that's a good thing nor a bad thing. I'm just pointing it out. The next thing is that the truce in Syria's Dera region is holding, but it's very fragile. Look, to me, a truce is a truce. I know there's more stable ones compared to others in negotiations. That's just human interaction. It's as simple as that. You sit down at a table with someone to negotiate. It all comes down to the energy you feel as a negotiator, what the person says. That's what it comes down to. There's no difference between you and I speaking on a Zoom call, for example, members will know, and those speaking at the UN when they negotiate. We're all humans, you know? Well, arguably. The next thing is that Israeli police launch a search after 6 Palestinians managed to break out from Gilboa prison overnight through a tunnel. I don't know what these Palestinians did with regards to their crimes, so I don't want to say whether or not they deserve to have escaped or not. I don't want to speculate because I don't know. So we'll just leave it at that for now. Gaddafi's son was freed from his Libyan jail cell, I believe today or yesterday. The media reports say that Saadi Gaddafi departed on a plane to Istanbul immediately after his release. If no one's after him, I mean, assuming he never did anything, again, I don't know the full history about Gaddafi and all the stuff he did when he was around, so please forgive me. I don't mean to push false information, but presuming his son is not targeted, he should be okay. But if he is, he's got to watch, right? The next thing is that a pregnant Palestinian woman who was 9 months into her pregnancy was freed from prison after outcry from many different angles. I believe it was an Israeli prison. From her lawyers, there were protests, and again, it's nice to see that, the government of Israel cooperated. Not saying that they never do, but it's nice to see that. It's nice to see, when people work together in this regard to free people in that sense. I don't know what she did, why she's in prison, but again, I'm not trying to overlook that either. We have to factor that in. The next thing is that Saudi forces have intercepted 3 ballistic missiles, and they blame the Houthi rebels on this. Okay. I mean, look, this is going to happen. Presuming this is accurate information and they're not bullshitting to push another narrative from an intelligence perspective, the rebels tried to make an attack. It didn't work, and they made it public, and now they're going to respond. Simple. However, that's assuming that's the truth. The next thing is that Syria says it welcomes Lebanon's request to import energy. The plan involves using Egyptian gas to generate electricity in Jordan that will then be transmitted via Syria to Lebanon. Look, it's nice to see the countries working together in this way. As long as it's not for some underlying intelligence angle, it's nice to see this happen. The next thing is that the Israeli president and Jordanian king are holding secret talks to try and further ties and relations between the two countries. Remember, the Israeli president, not the prime minister. Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has the final say, from my understanding. The next thing is that at least 30 people have been killed in the northeast DR Congo by suspected ADF rebels. The attack occurred in the Ituri region on Saturday, officials said, as the restive region sees rise in deadly attacks. Again, the same thing, tribes, gangs, rebels, all trying to go after one thing, whether it's money, whether it's leverage to get more freedom, whether it's territory, land. It's the same general shit, guys. I mean, it's sad to see here, but the next thing is that there are reports of Guinea unrest in Guinea, I should say, send aluminum prices to a 10-year high. Now, Guinea is a key supplier of bauxite, aluminum's raw material. Markets are concerned about potential supply disruptions. We're going to cover this in an upcoming episode, folks. This could be something bigger than just than just the coup. But anyways, and the Guinea coup makers vow to, quote, entrust politics to the people, end quote. Special forces troops say they dissolved the constitution and shut the country's land and air borders. Apparently, the people of Guinea are very happy. It's hard to say when these coups happen, right? Unless I'm on the ground myself, I don't want to push anything as fact at this point. It's unfortunate, but that's what the world's come to, right? The next thing is that South African ex-President Zuma leaves prison on a medical parole. Jacob Zuma will complete remainder of his 15-month prison sentence in system of community corrections. If I'm not mistaken, I believe there was outcry over this particular ex-president's arrest, if I'm not mistaken, and imprisonment. The next thing is that Brazil has confirmed mad cow disease cases. They suspended China beef export. However, the Brazilian health ministry says there's no risk to human or animal health after detecting 2 cases of the disease. Here's the thing. I don't know how much the U.S. intelligence apparatus of the Five Eyes Alliance has over Brazil. To be quite fair with all of you, I don't know how much stock I hold in regards to trusting the Brazilian health ministry, just because I want to, folks. I really do. But we've seen the corruption there, unfortunately. So it's hard to say. The next thing is that a probe begins into alleged bribe involving Guatemala's president. The prosecutors are investigating an alleged bribe from Russian businessmen to President Alejandro Giammattei. Hopefully I said his name correctly. My apologies if I butchered it. Of course. This was probably an intelligence operation, of course. Nothing will probably happen to him, but you will see. Keep in mind, for those who don't know, Guatemalan special forces have been known to be used by the CIA, the Mossad, MI6 as like a proxy group when they want to carry out a hit that they don't want to tie back to them. The next thing is that Taiwan says 19 Chinese military aircraft entered its airspace. The incursion included bombers and fighters, according to Taiwan, and was the largest incursion since June. This is where I kind of agree with Steve Bannon, folks, when he says, and a lot of the guys on the right, when they say they look at the Biden administration and they say weakness. Now, look, let's play devil's advocate. Let's be fair here. Unless there's some type of intelligence operation going on the back end, whether it's with the Pentagon army of 60,000 secret undercover agents or the CIA, if they're doing something on the back end, then I'm not even going to judge the Biden administration, because arguably, again, as we talk about in the main episodes, these guys, part of the establishment, the deep state, the military-industrial complex guys, they do what they want. They don't need approval from Biden. That's just, for the front of it, whether it was Trump, Biden, Obama, Bush, you name it, right? So, again, we'll see what happens. From a public perspective, it doesn't look like the Biden administration is doing much, though. So, the next thing is that Facebook has apologized after its AI labeled black men, quote, primates, end quote. Okay, they made a mistake. They said sorry. How come they don't ban themselves from censoring people for, 2 weeks? Why don't they? Just like when Biden went on CNN's town hall a month ago with Don Lemon and said, if you get the vaccine, you're not going to catch COVID. And Don Lemon agreed and goes, yeah, that's pure bullshit COVID misinformation. Let's go by the book now. That's pure misinformation. How come the Biden's Twitter account's not banned for 2 weeks or whatever? See? You see what I'm saying here? Come on, right? The next thing is that a 3-year-old Australian boy, a 3-year-old Australian boy was rescued after 3 days in the bush. Apparently, he's doing very well. He's healthy. I figured I'd end today's news with a bit of a positive note. So, thank you so much, folks, for listening to all of this, for watching. It was a great news roundup. If I missed anything, please leave it in the comments if you're listening or watching on YouTube, and we'll catch all of you very, very soon. We got a members episode coming out today, as well as an early release for the Patreon members, and we also have Camden's Janung and the Restless, which a lot of you love too, coming out later on. Cheers.